We like to mix. We like to have festivals. Imagine a country like this put under a lockdown, closed, told to stay in your homes, not to meet anyone, not to get onto the streets, with the fear of this virus outside, not to touch anything. It is so scary. People are wearing masks everywhere. There is so much of social distance, social break which is taking place. So we thought, let us sit and find out what has been the impact on our social lives. Sapio Analytics is a company which is aiding the government in carrying out modeling, assessment, and analysis of various aspects. And one of them is the social aspect. It has teamed up with a number of experts from various fields, various walks of life, and also from students of different universities who are helping Sapio Analytics work out models and build mitigating measures to help the government improve its measures to help fight coronavirus. We shall be bringing out today some of these measures that we have put forth towards the social impact mitigation as far as coronavirus is concerned. Our team at Sapio has identified 5 factors which would impact a social life in lockdown conditions under the coronavirus. I shall hand over to the team to identify and present to you these 5 factors. A team which has worked day and night over the last almost about 15-20 days and got together, analyzed data from all over the world, from all over the country, and worked to find this framework, to work out the parameters as to how our social lives has got impacted. Do listen to this. It's an interesting study which has been carried out with a lot of in-depth knowledge put into this. I hand you over to this team to give you these 5 factors on social impact of coronavirus.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So now I would share my screen. Is the screen visible?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now I would request Tazim to start with the water and sanitation impact of COVID-19.
Hello, I'm Tazim and I'm going to be talking about water and sanitation. First of all, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So starting with water, clean and safe water is a basic necessity whose supply needs to be maintained during this pandemic too. In the current lockdown, when maintaining personal hygiene is key, provision of water is even more vital for arresting the spread of the virus and ensuring that there is no impact on daily life, things like cooking or cleaning. The team has found out 3 main factors that are affecting the water supply in the current lockdown: authorization of settlement, tap location, and availability of chemicals and protective equipment. Moving on to the next slide, I'm going to talk about the factors. Starting with authorization of settlement, whether the area is authorized by the government or municipal corporation or the state government or not. If the area is unauthorized, it means that they don't have access to piped water which is provided by the government or the municipal corporation of that area, and they have to use private resources like a water tanker for their water supply. In the current lockdown, it is heavily affected because water tankers can't move around in a lockdown. Moving on to tap location, this is based on where the taps are located, within the household or outside the household. If the taps are located out of the household, these are the taps like the community taps or common wells, then people have to go outside and fetch water. It is difficult during a lockdown and their lives get impacted. Finally, I'm going to talk about availability of chemicals and protective equipment. Right now, it hasn't affected the water supply yet, but it can in the future. Adequate supply of water purifying chemicals is required, and the safety of workers working in these water treatment facilities is a must. Moving on to sanitation. Sanitation is one of the most important steps to fight against COVID-19. One of the major issues that we have identified in sanitation is the topic of washroom. Washrooms is used by each and every one of us on a daily basis, and the maintenance of these washrooms is necessary, and it gets affected by lockdown. The two main factors that may affect sanitation level of a washroom is the type of toilet access and the sanitation of the toilets itself. Moving on to the factors of the sanitation. um, Private toilets, these are the toilets which are the most secure. That means the toilets in each and every one of our houses, inside the houses basically. Now moving on to the public toilets. Public toilets are used by people in masses, which means that one common toilet generally serves most of the slum houses in an area. For example, in Dharavi, there is only one toilet per 1440 residents. And washrooms is a basic necessity which has to be used by each and every one of us. And these washrooms can easily be become a hotspot. And finally, it's no access. It means that people living in rural areas where they don't even have a washroom, there will always be a risk of infection at all times unless there are no COVID-19 cases in the area. Now, talking about the sanitation of the toilets, all types of toilets that are well sanitized reduce the chances of infection significantly. But let's suppose there is a non-sanitized public toilet and an undetected COVID-19 person uses it. These public toilets are used by people in masses, and they can easily become a hotspot for become the epicenter of spread of infection. Now I'll hand it over to KF, who's going to talk about essential goods.
Kev, could you please?
Yeah, hi. Am I audible?
Yes, Kev, you're audible.
Hi. So to understand the factors affecting supply of essential goods, we first need to know how supply chain functions. There are basically 7 stakeholders in a supply chain. To name: government, manufacturers, distributors, wholesalers, retailers, and the consumer itself. And the most important stakeholder is a transporter, which links all the above stakeholders. All these stakeholders are bind by two things. First, flow of material. Second, flow of information. Flow of material as in flow of goods itself, and flow of information is information about the demand of good, consumption of good. This These two factors got disrupted due to implementation of lockdown, because when the lockdown was implemented, initially there was a huge amount of panic buying. People were worrying whether they would get stuff, their essential goods after a period of 7 days or not. So they were buying extra stuff. Now coming to some positive side of some positive facts. One is supply at the source. There is abundant amount of food grains available with the government. It's with Food Corporation of India. It's around 77 million tons of food grains. And secondly, government have implemented some measures to counteract the faults in road transport using roadways. They have used their rail network to supply essential goods to the consumer. Like this, between the period of 23rd March and 14th April itself, there were like 7,88,000 wagons used to transport essential goods. Now coming to the next slide, we would discuss the factors affecting the supply chain. As I mentioned earlier, the panic buying is a major factor. There were reported cases of 75% increase in ticket size at various pharmacies and grocery stores. This have compelled retailers to increase their period of inventory cycle. This led to the hoarding of goods at the retailer end, and at the end it led to increase in prices of good, as there were reported cases of increase in price of dal by 10 to 15%. Now coming to the physical versus digital store, how these two industries are impacted by the lockdown. There have been the tectonic shift has been observed in consumer behavior, not only in India but all over the world, due to fear of contracting viruses. They are preferring more to buy online, as a survey conducted by NRF, which is National Retailer Federation. It mentions that more than 50% of the consumer have preferred to order their products online, which would they normally purchase from brick and mortar store. So the retail giants like Big Bazaar have been compelled to go online and operate on the online model. Coming to the travel restriction, when the lockdown was implemented during the first week, the daily movement of trucks has collapsed to like 10% of their normal. Somehow it have come, situation have got better, but it still haven't come to the normal. And this have led to the shortage of perishable good at various local markets, like some seasonal fruits like mangoes haven't been able to reach their destination even in the local market itself, in domestic market of India. Now coming to the availability of labor constraint have been identified as a major challenge in production, transportation, distribution in the period of lockdown by the major industrialists. And some of the production facilities are running at 20% of the 20% of the capacity due to shortage of labor. Now I would like to hand mic to Kopal to discuss psychological aspects.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Kopal, you're audible.
Yes, so hello, I'm Kopal. I have worked upon the psychological impact of COVID-19 on the society. Psychological impact is one of the long-lasting effects of quarantine and COVID-19. There are like negative psychological conditions such as post-traumatic stress, confusion, anger, depression, fear, which are increasing in the society. There was a study conducted in China. China has been the most affected by COVID-19 the earliest. There was a study conducted there with a survey of 369 adults in 64 cities, that after facing COVID-19, the adult population is more distressed. They have lower physical and mental health and life satisfaction. Can you move on to the next slide, please? The contributing factors to the psychological impact are, the first one would be pre-existing conditions. In a recent survey by the Indian Psychiatry Society, the sudden rise in those suffering from mental illness is up to 20%. Around 10% of the Indian population suffers from common mental diseases, such as depression, anxiety, OCD. The impacts are particularly difficult for older people who might be experiencing cognitive declines or dementia, helplessness, and loneliness. The next factor, which has been a major role, has been the disruption of routine. School routines especially are a coping mechanism for students, but due to schools being suspended, the opportunity for them to get social support for a good mental well-being is not there anymore. Children, especially with special needs, such as those with autism spectrum disorder, they are at even more risk. The third contributing factor we have is miscommunication of the facts. There is a study by Lancet which says that there is a lack of normalized conversation between the children and the adults about how to perceive the situation and the information they are getting about COVID-19. And this miscommunication is affecting most children of the ages between age of 4 and 7. And due to this information overload through news channels and social media, a lot of fake and alarmist is also contributing to the lack of getting actual data and increasing the level of stress and anxiety among people. Since the government has announced the nationwide lockdown, Maharashtra has registered 218 cases against misinformation and propaganda on social media. And this is just the number of one state. The numbers for the entire country are much higher and will keep on increasing with the increase in lockdown. The fourth contributing factor is uncertainty about the timeline of the pandemic. There is uncertainty of exams among the students. There's uncertainty of job market lingering among the people and the students as well. And it just increased the anxiety. In a report by Kaiser Family Foundation of the United States, by mid-March, 32 people reported that they were stressed due to coronavirus impacting their mental health. However, just 2 weeks later, the percentage had risen up to 45%. Can you move on to the next slide? The fifth factor affecting here are the elderly population. There is a disruption of routine, which is absolutely affecting the elderly population. There was a survey by HelpAge India, which estimated that 10 to 20% of senior citizens are suffering from loneliness during this pandemic. And this number is just increasing. The fear of stigmatization is another very important aspect. After the SARS outbreak, quarantine participants were significantly more likely to report stigmatization and rejection from the people in their local neighborhood. In May 2003, there were 4,000 calls which were sampled in the which the mental health helpline of the United States had got, and 10% of these calls were individuals expressing their concerns related to stigmatization and discrimination. Alcohol withdrawal, the next factor is, again, we have heard in recent times the news regarding Kerala and Meghalaya. There have been reported suicides. Kerala has observed 7 suicides between 25th March to 2nd April. Although the percentage is less than 5%, but states with high liquor consumption will see an increase in suicide numbers. Dysfunctional family dynamics is another very important aspect for people with those kind of families with such as an abusive partner or domineering parents. Staying at home, even though is safe, but it's triggering their anxiety, which leaves many people susceptible to relapse of clinical depression. In fact, there is a 100% rise in domestic violence case in India as of April 8, 2020 due to the lockdown. The continuation of the lockdown will just increase this number. And last factor is the loss of livelihood. According to India, Ideas for India, in the current pandemic situation, around 0.2 billion workers, including casual workers, regular salary workers without any job security, self-employed people, their jobs are at stake. So these were the factors which are impacting the psychological impact. Next, I would like to hand over the behavioral aspects to Geet.
Am I audible?
Yes, Geet, you're audible.
Now we'll take on the behavioral aspects of the social impact. The success of any lockdown policy depends on how people react to it. This support becomes even more important in these unprecedented times. India has seen a huge support from her people to the measures taken by the authorities. Even from the poorest of the poor to the ultra rich, all are following government norms in this to fight this pandemic. We have studied the factors that have contributed to the success of the lockdown and those that have posed challenges during the lockdown. Can you have the next slide, please? Some of the factors that are related to the behavioral aspects are one is the resistance to change lifestyle. People who tend to have a very active lifestyle seem to violate the lockdown norms very frequently. Most people go out for morning and evening walks. People also go out to the markets twice and thrice a day, this causes a lot of hindrance on the efforts of the authorities to contain the pandemic and implement the lockdown norms. India is also a very religious country. We see a festival almost every month. Religious processions have a potential to cause a lot of problems for the authorities in the country. While it is important to respect the faith of the population, but in such unprecedented times, it is also more important to follow social distancing norms to avoid gatherings in large numbers. One such example was the Siddhalingeshwara fair that was organized in a red zone in Karnataka. The main problem with this is we don't know how a person will get impacted, will be vulnerable to the coronavirus pandemic. Moreover, the religious processions are very sensitive to handle even by the government. The daily wage earners situation is very unique to India. The daily wage earners are the most impacted section of the population, even in terms of earnings and jobs. The lockdown has suddenly stopped their earnings. This, combined with misinformation, has got them gathering in large numbers and even walking hundreds of miles back to their native places. One prominent incident caused by misinformation was a Bandra incident, where a huge crowd gathered in anticipation of trains starting from that particular day. It would require efforts from the society as a whole to improve their conditions. Now I hand over to Vikrant to continue with the crime section.
Thank you, Deep. So ever since the lockdown has been implemented, there has been a significant drop in the crime that has been observed. The crimes such as the routine crimes such as theft and arson and theft of vehicles and so on and so forth. But the peculiar feature of this lockdown is there are certain crimes which are on rise. To give you some examples of such crimes would be counterfeit fraud, cybercrime, xenophobia, then attacks on the frontline workers and lockdown violations. So these crimes are increasing, but overall the crime rate has been decreasing. So what we have basically done over here is we have, based on the crime opportunity theory and environmental criminology, taking that as a reference, we have broken down every crime into two parts. So one is the time that is required for the crime, the opportunity for the crime, and one is the space that is used for the crime or the environment of the crime. So as the lockdown has been implemented, you need workers, healthcare workers, and frontline workers who work in the front line and help all the patients and people who are affected by the COVID-19. But then there is a lot of discrimination and attacks that have been observed on the frontline workers, especially the doctors and other medical and sanitation workers, just because they are in close proximity to the infected patients. And I mean, that's the only reason. So even in the societies that they live, there have been a lot of videos that are released in which you could clearly see them being harassed and attacked and stigmatized by the other society members. Considering this taking this into consideration, Government of India has also passed a law which has made attacks on frontline workers as a punishable offense. But we are still to look how effective it is in the near future. And since lockdown enforces people to stay at their own place or home, and considering the behavioral aspect of human beings, there have been a lot of lockdown violations in India and also all around the world. So one of the reasons being, as it was previously pointed out in the behavioral aspect, humans are more social beings and they like to interact, but now suddenly they're asked to not socialize and follow social distancing. So because of that, which is against the nature of human beings, so that has led to a lot of violations. And there has been a lot of rise in such cases, not only in Maharashtra, but in Maharashtra, in Delhi, and across India. So you can see the numbers as there has been 46,671 cases in Maharashtra itself, and 40 FIRs against people who have been, asked to follow home quarantine. And since people are locked down, a lot of families are locked down as well, and the vulnerable section of the families are attacked a lot. So there has been a lot of rise in the domestic violence that has been happening on women, and National Commission of Women has recorded more than twofold rise in the gender-based crime, which is very alarming. So authorities need to take this into consideration while they implement lockdown. Even in Canada, there has been a lot of cases where women are fleeing their houses, and Canadian government has been providing them houses for the homeless women who have been fleeing. And there has been also threefold rise in police apathy towards the domestic violence crime that have been reported. The obvious reason for this is police personnel are more busy in enforcing the lockdown, and they are more in a firefighting mode. So they lack bandwidth to actually solve these kind of crimes. And since taking the panic buying aspect of the lockdown into consideration, people are reading fake news on social media, and they are willing to become their own doctor. So they have been buying all the fake products or the fake medicines that have been uh, released on online websites, or even the local vendors or godmen or whoever is trying to sell them that. So there has been rise in counterfeit material fraud. So Interpol has been monitoring this kinds of fraud. And so to give you an example, there was a godman in UP who claimed 100% cure for coronavirus, and he was selling that medicine for a very cheap rate. And also there have been fake N95s, PPEs, and unverified medical products which are being sold as protection against coronavirus. And since this coronavirus has majorly attacked the urban areas, and also urban areas have the largest section of the pie when it comes to the users who use internet, cyber criminals are exploiting this situation to fullest extent. So they have been they are also leveraging the fear and the panic that have been there surrounding the coronavirus, and they have been sending phishing mails, fake WhatsApp forwards, fake social media accounts, and ransomware attacks, and so on and so forth. So urban areas have become the red zones, not only for coronavirus but also for cyber crimes. And a peculiar feature of this virus rise was that there have been a lot of incidents of xenophobia and racism. So people are linking this virus to Chinese people. So anyone who's perceived of being Chinese is stigmatized, is facing discrimination. There have been deserting of Chinese restaurants, and there have been deserting of Chinese areas or Chinese settlements all over the world. And also in India, there have been a lot of discrimination against people who are perceived as being Chinese. To give you an example, the northeastern people. So they have been facing bullying, memes, and different kind of articles which are targeting them. And there have also been rise of Islamophobia in India after some of the cases were linked to the Tablighi Jamaat group. And this has led to a lot of fake news which have been shared online, fake videos, and causing more turmoil. So now I would request Dr. Gupta to conclude the session. Dr. Gupta?
Thanks, Vikrant. Good evening, everyone. So I'm Megha, and we saw that, it's easy to look at the COVID-19 pandemic from a medical point of view and its huge economical impact. But equally important is to look at the social impact of the pandemic and the resulting lockdown. Many of these aspects often get ignored or get low priority. So it's very important for us to look at these factors as well. So we studied basically 5 aspects of social impact, starting with water and sanitation. Looking at the factors that may affect water and water supply and sanitation during the lockdown. We found that mainly underprivileged and unauthorized settlements which do not have access to piped water, which rely on tankers, or they rely on communal taps or wells, right? So shared sources of water for their cooking and cleaning and drinking. They will be most affected by the lockdown, because not only does the lockdown result in a shortage of labor, or in general the tankers won't be available in the same numbers as before, but also social distancing becomes ineffective and more difficult to follow for communal water sources in such times. Also, inadequate sanitation
irrespective of the pandemic, is of prime importance. Adequate sanitation is of prime importance, and at any time, if sanitation is not proper, especially at public toilets, which are being used by, in India, especially in densely populated areas, it's being used by hundreds of people. One toilet is being shared by hundreds of people. So it becomes even more of a threat during the lockdown, when sanitation workers may not be available, which may again, and it may lead to, anyway, the toilets, such public toilets are possible, have the potential to become hotspots if even there is one COVID positive patient. So then we moved on to the supply of essentials like food items and medical supply. So what we have seen so far is that although the supply doesn't seem to be an issue, there is plenty of supply of groceries, plenty of supply of medical items too, but there is a huge issue in the disbursement, and the lockdown has caused an instability in the supply chain. Panic buying due to a lot of fake news and alarmist news has also resulted in artificial shortage of supply, where people are just hoarding and creating this artificial shortage of supply. And there have been a lot of travel restrictions imposed, interstate and intrastate travel restrictions imposed, which are affecting the disbursement, effective disbursement of these goods. So those have been the major issues, and we need to look at how to maintain the supply chain of at least the critical components, as well as make sure that the transporters or people involved in the supply chain have the required permissions to move about, under supervision, of course, with proper precautions taken. Then we moved on to the psychological impact, which is an often overlooked impact of a pandemic or a disaster. And it is very important to study these impacts, because these are long-lasting impacts, psychological impacts. If you look at research done for earlier pandemics, even 3 or 4 years after the pandemic was over, psychological impacts were still found to be there in people. So it's important to see which section of the population is more prone, more susceptible to these impacts. And some of these people are those with, of course, those with pre-existing conditions, but also elderly population which are facing loneliness, kids who are facing a disruption in routine and don't really understand properly what's going on, students who are very uncertain about when the pandemic would end, healthcare workers who undergo a lot of stress and anxiety, and of course fear about contracting the virus themselves. In general, a lot of miscommunication of information and fake news has been causing stress and anxiety in the general population as well. So all of these we need, and there has been domestic violence has been increasing. So and we need to look at people with dysfunctional family dynamics, for whom staying at home may not be the safest option, like for many of us. So and finally then we moved on to the behavioral aspect of the pandemic, and we studied this 2 ways, that how is the behavioral attitude of people in India is affecting the success of the lockdown, and how the lockdown is affecting the behavior as well. So we looked at it both ways, and basically we saw that availability of daily essentials, religious congregations, loss of livelihood by many people, and how prevalent the disease is in areas, in different areas, and how well they have been informed of the facts about the pandemic and the lockdown. These are some major factors that have been affecting how people are reacting to the lockdown, and whether they have been supportive or not. Finally, crime has seen like a new wave of different types of crimes have been on the rise. Regular crimes seem to have declined, but crimes like counterfeit fraud, attacks on frontline workers, cyber crimes, and xenophobia and domestic violence, they have they are showing an increase. And if we take a data-driven approach towards all of these aspects right away, then the authorities will be able to make better decisions about taking these aspects into account and making sure that the social impact, the negative social impact of the lockdown and the pandemic is minimized. Yeah, so that's to conclude. Also, we have shared a copy of our white paper on the chat. Hardik has also been sharing more information about the team, about Sapio Analytics, and about the whole goal of the team on the chat. So please do go through that, and we welcome your comments and suggestions regarding this. So let's open this to Q&A. If I will be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gupta. Dr. Gupta, I would also request you to shed some light on the modeling part that we are also going to do, and how are we going to link it to the ultimate decision support system that we are building for the government authorities.
Sure. So what we presented today has been more on the qualitative level, right? We identified a lot of factors for each of these different aspects of the pandemic and the lockdown. So now what we are working on already is quantifying these factors. We are identifying a list of sub-factors that would, for example, affect the number of crimes, or affect a particular type of crime, or affect the supply chain. And we are trying to quantify it based on research, available data from the government and news articles. And then we will combine all of that quantitative data to be able to assess, put a number on the overall impact, social impact of this lockdown. And it will be done in a way that parameters are tunable, so that you can see where to take action to get a better increase or impact on the negative impacts of the lockdown. So that's what we are working on right now.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Now we are open to questions. If you have any questions, you can ask in the chat window. Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Gupta. Thank you, Colonel Athawale, for the brilliant insight and great work from all my friends over here. So Colonel Athawale, would you like to take some questions from the chat box that have already been asked by a few of our participants here? Colonel Athawale? Yeah.
Yes, the question which is there regarding how the lockdown should be, taken off, best way to revoke the lockdown so that the pandemic does not start spreading again. I think Mr. Atul Pandey has asked this question. See, the lockdown, what exactly is lockdown? Lockdown is to keep people away from crowding at certain places. So when we are going to open the lockdown or revoke the lockdown, it should be done in stages, in a manner so that we prevent that crowding taking place. For that, we need to institute certain measures at maybe malls, public places, and things like that. As the time wise, number of people wise, and things like that. If you open up a supermarket, then you allow so many people at any given time to be entering that supermarket and not more, and things like that. So even if lockdown has been opened up, you still need to slowly keep maintaining social distancing and things like that to keep the disease at bay. It is not that the disease has gone away. So we need to continue to take care to prevent ourselves from getting infected. When we are extending the lockdown, when we are revoking the lockdown and opening up the shops and opening up the businesses, again, when we are going to offices and all, we need to keep our social distancing in mind. We need to keep precautionary measures in mind. It's not that we start, hugging each other and, meeting as we were before. So there has to be a cultural and a systemic change which needs to continue to be adopted, even if the lockdown has been revoked. So I think that needs to trickle down to every person and every part of the society, so that we don't, end up getting affected by the disease. That is what I think would need to be done.
Perfect. Thank you. So the next
Thank you, sir.
question, what measures policymakers can take to prevent or mitigate domestic violence in the country? So, Dr. Megha, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, so the first step is to actually identify the areas where, which may be more prone to domestic violence cases based on the history, of that area, or just the constitution of the family. And of course, a lot of helplines have already been opened for to report domestic violence cases, as well as for other to get help on other psychological issues. So it will be very important to for the government to communicate about the availability of these in the right manner and extensively, so that people are aware of it, and they have an option to reach out for help if they are facing any such issues at home. And as extension of lockdown is of course a major hurdle that could aggravate these issues, but making the people aware about options for help is the best way to go about. But again, it has to come from the government, from reliable sources. As we saw, like fake news has been a major negative factor in many of the aspects. So we need to remove the stigma attached to reporting such things, and make the correct communication available for everyone.
Thank you, doctor. So on a side note, we are still in the process of researching, and will shortly come up with our next white paper as well. So if anyone has some suggestions on the current paper and some comments as in how we can improve and what factors do we need to consider more in our upcoming paper, then you may please send me an email. I've dropped my email ID in the chat box, and then we can discuss that as well. So coming back to the next question, how will mental health issues be addressed if the lockdown is again extended, as seen in other countries? So Colonel Athavale.
Sorry, I couldn't get that question.
Yeah. How will mental health issues be addressed if the lockdown is again extended, as seen in other countries?
Yeah, see, extension of lockdown may be there, and there is going to be pressure on people. There is going to be a lot of stress which is going to be caused. Mental health is something which differs from person to person. And there is a need to continue some form of socialization, and therefore use of social media, use of telephone systems, talking to people, talking to family, using video chats. These are means which will continue to keep you connected, keep you socialized, and keep you in a better frame of mind. So, to ensure a good state of mental health in an extended kind of a lockdown situation, we need to take more help from these kind of measures. And in case you find that somebody is getting depressed, somebody is not feeling bright enough and all that, then you need to extend some kind of a help, some kind of a psychological help to that person in some manner, whether by having a professional visit or extension, which can be extended through professional means. Such kind of measures need to be adopted. But I think in India, it is more of a social issue, and therefore we need to continue to maintain social connection through the means that are available.
Thank you, Karna. Yeah. So I'll combine these two questions again now. One is on the policeman about the psychological pressure, and the second regarding the caregiver burden for the people, for those people who are caring for severe disease patients like Parkinson's. So this question has come from one of our one of our member organizations and one of our collaborators, Parkinson's India Foundation. So, Colonel Atule, would you like to comment on this particular psychological question?
Yeah. Firstly, we need to look at the larger aspect of who are the people who are getting stressed. At the moment, it is healthcare and the police and civic officials who are getting stressed. But there are a lot of government agencies, paramilitary forces, which are not yet been committed to these kind of tasks. So there is a need for the government to look at such assets which are available to them to help give relief periods to the existing people who are on deployment, so that they get some kind of a relief, some kind of time off to recuperate, to come out of their stress period and get back on duty. Sharing of work, giving decentralized working pattern for these people who are already stressed would be a big help. I was reading on how the Italian system was working and how they co-opted other government agencies to carry out certain tasks of administrative nature or not critical nature, which initially was being done by the medical services or by the police services. Like delegating tasks to the fire brigade, delegating tasks to home guards, delegating tasks to, like in our case, we can have the NCC taking on some tasks like, distribution of PPE or accounting for certain medical goods and things like that, which otherwise hospital staff is doing. So these will reduce the stress on the hospital staff and allow them to focus on what they are doing. So these are various measures which can be taken to relieve stress from the staff which is already on duty.
Thank you.
So I would like to add to that. I mean, regarding the psychological impact. So there have been apps online which have been helping people to giving therapies, etc. So one such example is CureFit Online, and even the therapists have signed an agreement, an online therapy agreement. So people facing such kind of psychological disorders can definitely leverage that.
Thank you, Vikrant. So, Megha ma'am, would you like to add something on this thing and also answer the question asked by Amarjit?
So, particularly to Kunal's question, I would like to say yes, that the frontline workers are under extreme stress and psychological pressure right now. And, how that will get handled is also a function of not just how the psychological aspects are handled by the authorities or government, but also how the behavioral aspects are handled, the supply chain is handled. Because if the lockdown is, if people are more willing to obey the lockdown, support the lockdown, then it automatically implies lesser pressure on the frontline workers. Right now, they are being attacked, and people, there have been so many lockdown violations as well. So just working on all these aspects simultaneously and trying to bring down the negative social impact will also result in bringing down the pressure on these people. Having said that, of course, the authorities should actively take some measures, since they also come in, the police and the doctors, they also come under the categories, under the section of people who are very susceptible to psychological disorders at this time. Active measures need to be taken to address such population who are especially susceptible. So that is the whole point of doing this exercise, to identify such population so that better measures can be taken for them. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Megha. So coming to question asked by Akshat, what would be the possible sequence in which lockdown will be lifted? This is again a question which has been answered in our economic impact paper, but just so that it has come now, so I'll quickly ask Ashwin sir. Ashwin sir is the CEO of Sapio Analytics. So quickly, if you can share a few insights from the economic impact paper.
Yes, Hardik. Akshat, we will be sharing the economic impact paper with you again. And also in the next 2 days, I would say we will be also presenting to you an entire paper on an entire platform on how the lockdown needs to be planned and lifted across industries, across regions, on a hyper local level, on a granular level. Also keeping into mind what we have seen right now, the social impact as well as economic impact, along with the spread of the virus. Keeping all those three things in mind, how have we optimized and planned as to how the lockdown needs to be removed over a period of time across different regions and industries is something we will be sharing soon. So there's an entire plan on that, and that is something which we'll be working with with various governments also. We are already engaged, which you will be seeing in some time.
Thank you, sir. So one of the last questions from Anupa Kohli is that, is there any concern about sexual and reproductive health of women, especially women from low income background? So Dr. Megha, would you like to take that question?
So I haven't researched well enough on this aspect, so thanks for bringing this to notice. But one of the immediate things that I can think of is that, of course, it is all these are concerns. Whether the lockdown aggravates these issues is what we need to evaluate. For example, like till late March, sanitary napkins were also not part of the essential supplies list, but thankfully then they were added to it. So the government is doing its part. We need to measure how the lockdown is affecting these so sexual and reproductive health. Is the lockdown affecting it negatively? How so? And if we are able to then quantify it, model it, then we'll be able to take some actions on it. But if Anupa, I would like, since you seem to be from this field, I would like you to add to this. Like, how do you think lockdown is affecting to this aspect?
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. And We would request Anupa Kohli to please get in touch with us in case if you have some suggestions on this particular sector. So if we will take one last question, if any. Otherwise, Vikrant, you may take the discussion ahead. Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay. So, Hardik, I think we can end this session as of now. So we discussed on different aspects, and it was a very fruitful discussion, and there were a lot of insightful points, especially the last one which was brought about, which could be added in the crime and psychological section as well, regarding reproductive and the reproductive health of the woman. So, and certain other things that we are also planning on and which is in the pipeline are, I would like to highlight that. So one of the things is from a more data driven perspective, Dr. Gupta already highlighted that previously. So I'll shed some more light on that. So we are in the process of quantifying all the aspects, and we are in the process of converting the data into mathematical models. So we would be developing a model which would help the authorities to decide how much the lockdown, the zone of the lockdown and the length of the lockdown would have overall impact on these 5 factors. So we are working on developing a mathematical model for that. And as Ashwin sir rightly pointed out, we are also integrating that with the overall decision support system. So which would have the economic impact as well as the social impact of the lockdown lockdown that has been implemented on any of the regions. So that's in the pipeline. And apart from that, I think Hardik, we can end the session if there are no other questions. I guess there's one question, Hardik. There's one question regarding mutation of virus.
Colonel Athole, would you like to have some comment on it and then possibly close the session as well? Over to you, Colonel
Athole. You're referring to the question on mutation of the virus?
Yeah.
China has not been really identify what is the mutation, what will the effect be, and so on. So unless that kind of data is available, we will not be able to know what measures need to be taken or what effects would happen of that mutation. So we'll have to wait and see how the research goes on and what the outputs are to be able to find out what is to be done. So we'll have to wait and see for that. So thank you, everyone. It has been a very interesting session. A lot of knowledge, a lot of research has been done, a lot of analysis has been done, and a whole lot of work is yet to be done. And as has been spelled out, it will be done in the near future. This is something which is going to stay with us for some time. I urge all of you to continue to be careful, to continue to take precautions, to continue to maintain all the measures that have been given out by the Ministry of Health and other organizations. Stay safe, stay home, and stay healthy. God bless you all. Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you everyone for your time and energy. Really appreciate it. And please stay in touch with us. We have shared our contact details over the chat box, and we'll be happy to have some sort of insights and suggestions from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.